I've been a fan of the Pokemon franchise for pretty much my whole life. I started by watching the anime when I was about 2 or 3 years old. Then at 7, I got my first game with Pokemon Emerald. In fact, I still have my original childhood copy to this day. After Emerald, I've played every mainline game since. I think most of them are great because each of them has their own unique or interesting thing about them. But there are a couple that probably could have been a lot better. I'm looking at you two specifically. So what I'll be doing is talking about these games and then rank them on a tier list. I'll be dividing this into 3 videos to cover each of the generations of the franchise. Part 1 will be the Game Boy, Game Boy Color, and Game Boy Advance games. Part 2 will be the DS and 3DS games. And finally, Part 3 will be the Switch games. Before we start, be sure to check out my channel to see the other videos in this series. And consider subscribing so that you can be notified when videos like this or other videos go up. If you enjoy the video, leave it a like as it helps the channel get seen by others. And finally, let me know down below what you guys think about my tier list. Do you agree with it, or would you place certain games in a different tier? Let's go ahead and jump right into it. This video will be part 3, the Switch era. So here we are finally with the last era of Pokemon games so far, the current era of Pokemon games, where we have all the Switch titles, games that are currently out at the moment. So what we're gonna do is just jump right into it with Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu and Let's Go Eevee, which to me, I think they're some of my favorite games to play on the Switch. While I'm not a fan of the catching mechanic in docked mode, I still kind of like it. Like, I feel like it's a quick way to just encounter Pokemon and catch it and then move on to the next. And I do like that they made a shiny hunting method out of catching Pokemon with, with the whole catch combo thing, where for years, people have misunderstood how they work, but now we have a better idea after people did some digging and putting 2 and 2 together, which I guess I'll briefly explain so that way people can kind of understand what I'm trying to get at when it comes to the catch combo. So the way that it works is we used to think. Let me first talk about how we used to think how it worked. We used to think that all you had to do was get to a catch combo of 30 or more, and you can just kind of wait around until a shiny Pokemon appeared. And in this case, it was any Pokemon, any species. But then we found out years later, like 3 or 4 years later, that the way that it actually worked was that the next Pokemon that spawned in was the only one that had the increased shiny odds, and it would only affect the species of the Pokemon that you are doing the catch combo for. So let's say you're doing a catch combo for Pikachu. Once you get to 30, then the next Pikachu that spawns in has that highest chance of being shiny. If it spawns and it's not shiny, then every Pikachu after that will spawn at whatever the base odds are for the conditions that you're meeting, such as whether or not you have the shiny charm, and whether or not you have a lure, and whether or not those 2 things are being combined. So people used to think that it was any Pokemon or any species could spawn in with that increased shiny chance, and you didn't have to do anything else. But it was only the next Pokemon of that species that you were in the catch combo for would have the increased odds. And not only that, you had to keep catching that species of Pokemon in order to make sure that those increased odds are going to affect the next of that species that spawned in. So it's not like you had to stop at 31 and then wait for the next one to spawn. Oh, it didn't spawn. All right, cool. I guess we gotta wait around for the next one to spawn in. No, you had to keep catching, because when you caught the next Pokemon, the next in that combo, then it would increase the chances for that next Pokemon and so on and so forth. So that was a big misunderstanding for a long time, but now we know how it works, and I feel like people should know that information. And if you're watching this and you maybe want to go back and try shiny hunting again, try it out. Just get a catch combo going and just keep catching that Pokemon until the shiny spawns in, because likely, or more than likely, you're gonna get better shiny odds that way, or you're gonna encounter that shiny Pokemon faster, because obviously the odds are better for that subsequent encounter or a subsequent spawn, but you have to keep catching it, and then you're gonna get shiny Pokemon a little bit quicker. Now, of course, it's still down to luck, but instead of waiting around at 31 catch combo where the Pokemon are gonna spawn in at a 1 in 2048, then it's gonna take a lot longer to get shiny Pokemon that you want. Now, this isn't the definitive way to play through Kanto. I still think Fire Red and Leaf Green, those are the ways to do it. I still think that Fire Red and Leaf Green are the definitive ways to play through Kanto. I do like this game a lot. I do like how vibrant the world looks. I think they did a good job with making the game look a certain way and run a certain way. And I kind of prefer it over most of these games, to be honest. I feel like it does belong in A tier because they are fun games. They are really fun games to play. If you haven't played them, I recommend doing it. And even having these allows you to get Mew in BDSP if you don't have if you have a save file for either one of these games. And then same thing for Jirachi. If you have save data from Sword and Shield, you can get Jirachi as a gift within BDSP. So I'm gonna go ahead and put these games in A tier, at the bottom of A tier, because I much prefer these over, you know, Diamond, Pearl, Platinum, Sun and Moon, all these games. But I would rather pick other games to play. Like I did say that Fire Red and Leaf Green are the definitive ways to play through Kanto. So I'm obviously not going to put them above Ruby and Sapphire, but I still think that I would rather play Ruby and Sapphire over Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee for a more traditional experience with Pokemon. I think it's good there. I think really solid games there. And then let's go ahead and put Eevee up there as well before I forget. And then next we have more controversial games with Sword and Shield. Controversial, of course, in the sense that Dexit was a thing, and people hated that Pokemon were going to exclude a lot of Pokemon from these games going forward, mostly for like time crunching and not having to painstakingly put all of these Pokemon and all of their data and things like that into these games and make the games larger than they probably could have been. I mean, it is a Switch game. The cartridges are only so big, but Sword and Shield, they are a fun experience. Like, despite that sort of controversy, I do think that the games are pretty fun to play with. The story is whatever, but I think gameplay wise, it's fun. I don't think they are better than the Let's Go games. I think maybe they do belong in B tier, probably like at the beginning of B tier, like, or here at the top of B tier, because I can't warrant them being good enough to be A tier. Like, when I think of A tier, I think of like, these games are great and they're a lot of fun. There are like a few things here and there that make them imperfect, but they're not that bad or that low in quality that they belong in the middle of the road, sort of B tier. Like, B tier is like you know, they're solid, but they could be far better. A is like, oh yeah, these games are really good with a few flaws, like very minimal flaws. And then S tier is like nearly flawless to flawless, right? So while Sword and Shield are solid games, I think that they still suffer from people not liking that a lot of Pokemon are missing from the game. Even now, you know, 6 years later, I feel the same way. I feel like the games could have been better, but that's not enough to say like it belongs in B tier. I still think that other things like the story being kind of weird and then lack of post-game stuff makes it also kind of weird. I do think that the DLC is great. I think the DLC is better than the vanilla game, which is why I think that I'll still put it at the top of B tier rather than at the bottom of A tier, because not everyone is going to buy the DLC, so not everyone is going to get a slightly better experience playing through the games when you have the DLC included. So they're going to stay down in B tier for now, and then it'll probably stay there because I can't think of anywhere else where they belong. All right, next up we have, I think, the most controversial Pokemon games ever made. I'm gonna cut it very short. I'm gonna put these at the top of C tier, and here's why. And I think a lot of us know the reasons why. So the reason why I'm going to be putting Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl in C tier is because, and I'm putting them above the original games, because us fans expected certain things out of these games. We expected at least some of the platinum enhancements to be in these games because it makes sense. But we didn't get many of the, or well, not enhancements or many of, but we didn't get a couple of emerald things in Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire, such as the Battle Frontier, for example. But for Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl, a lot of us expected that maybe we would get the whole Giratina thing from Platinum, where you go to the Distortion world and you battle the origin form of it, but we didn't get that. We also didn't get a couple of other Platinum enhancements, like how the overworld looks like with some of the patches of snow. You do get the costume, or you know, the outfit, the player character outfit that you have in Platinum as a choice of your wardrobe, but that's not enough. We really needed something that was a mix of both Diamond and Pearl and Platinum to make this a great experience. We just expected some of the things that made Platinum, or that made that generation better with Platinum, to be included, and we just didn't get it. We got nothing. So that's why I'm putting them in C tier, because they are a bit of a disappointment. I'm not saying that they're terrible games. I mean, if you've played a Diamond and Pearl, they're pretty much the exact same games. And the funny thing is that they're so much like Diamond and Pearl that some of the glitches have carried over, because they literally took the coding. They took a lot of the coding from the original games and made Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl with them, which is why some of those glitches are still there. They don't belong in D tier, and the reason why I'm not putting them in D tier is because they're not awful games. It's C tier because they were very disappointing games, because it was expectation versus reality. You know, we expected something as great as what Platinum was to Diamond and Pearl, But what we got was the exact same thing as Diamond and Pearl, which from that there should have been an improvement from, not just like, oh, here's the same game, copy and paste, almost literally. It should have been a little bit more than that. For that, I would have preferred that they just had done a Pokemon Platinum remake. They just have one game, it'd be Pokemon Platinum, have all of the same sort of things that you get with what we got with BDSP, such as being able to catch all of the 493 Pokemon within the games, which is great. Like, you know, the first 493 Pokemon from Gens 1 through 4, whereas like, you know, the version exclusives were saved until like post-game, you know, just to kind of make it a little bit different. But we got what we got, and they're still solid games. I mean, I've barely played through them, but they're still solid games. They're just very disappointing. It's very much like a, I'm not angry, I'm just disappointed sort of mentality with those games. But yeah, they could have been so much better. Now, from probably the most disappointing games to probably one of the best games also, Legends Arceus. So these games mix up the formula. Instead of having you traveling through a region and earning gym badges from battling gym leaders and dealing with an evil organization, we get this brand new and refreshing game with Legends Arceus where you can get attacked by Pokemon. The game is pretty much all open world, or kind of semi-open world, like 80% open world. You can sneak up behind Pokemon and catch them. The story is very interesting with what happens with like Volo at the end. It's a very challenging Pokemon game, believe it or not. It is a difficult game, especially when you do get to that point with Volo. I've yet to get there. I've had this game now for, you know, since it came out 3.5 years ago, but I haven't finished it because I've been wanting to perfect as much of the Pokedex as possible before getting to that point. But this game, what a complete 180 from what we've gotten over the years. I think that, you know, this is just one of those like near perfect games that makes me hopeful that Legends ZA will be on track for that. And the Pokemon Company are still being very secretive about the game and what's going to be in the game. Like, yeah, they've been talking about things like, here's the organization you'll be working for, here's your group of friends, here's like the nighttime battling thing where you rank up and things like that. You know, you start at rank Z, you go up, I'm assuming, to rank A because the game is called Z to A, although it probably has more than one meaning as to why it's called Z to A or ZA, and new Mega Evolutions and things like that, but also a new battle mechanic in which it's more real-time battling than turn-based battling, so you can command your Pokemon to attack your opponent whenever you want. So it seems like it's already going to be an improvement over Legends Arceus, at least mechanically speaking, and I really want to put it up top. Like, I want to put it into S tier because the games are just, this game is just that good. Like, it was such a refreshing take on a Pokemon game that I hope that this is a series that will continue forever, that we'll get this alongside main series games and other side games and things like that. So I'm probably gonna put it, man, it's like I get why I can say that, why this game is better than Emerald, but I have more nostalgia for Emerald. Whew. Oh man, I don't know. I think it's gonna go number 2. I'm gonna put it just after Emerald. I just still prefer Emerald, whether that's nostalgia talking or not. I still prefer Emerald. I still think that this is the best game ever made, and I'm gonna stick to that. But yeah, Legends Arceus, absolutely S tier. And I hope that ZA follows suit, because it's going to be the most anticipated game from Pokemon in a while. It's going to be probably the most ambitious Pokemon game since Arceus. And that's not saying very much because we've only had one game with, Scarlet and Violet are 2 games, but they're the same game. And I hope that it's going to be up there with the rest of the S tier games. So I think that's very fitting. So now we move on back to controversial games. And not controversial in the sense that they did something bad, but controversial in the sense that these games were unfinished and they ran like dog water. While I think that the story is interesting, and I think that some of the mechanics of the game are cool, like terrestrialization is whatever in my opinion, but I think for competitive play, I think it's a very cool thing that they did. I will give the game props for that, and the story and the ambitious idea of having like this almost open world sort of thing. I still think that them not scaling the boss fights to your level, they didn't really do that. There's still like a set way to play through the game, but it's the issues that they had on the Switch 1 that make them probably somewhere in like mid B tier. Like, I enjoy Sword and Shield more than I do Scarlet and Violet. Like, if I had to choose to play either Sword and Shield or Scarlet and Violet, I would probably pick Sword and Shield. But that's not saying much because there are tons of games that I would rather play over Sword and Shield. So I think I'm gonna put them below Diamond and Pearl. I will say though that the Switch 2 improvements make the game so much better. It's what the games should have been. And I think that they should have waited until the console came out to release these games, so that way they ran great. Because I think that a lot of people's initial reactions to Scarlet and Violet are because of how they ran, how they performed on the Switch. I think that if the games came out now with the Switch 2, then these would easily be A-tier games. But it's that initial impression that leaves a bad taste in our mouths, that's why I think that they deserve to be in B tier and below even games that have their own like technical flaws to them. But Scarlet and Violet, for the initial 3 years that they were on the Switch 1, yeah, I think they deserve B tier. There's really no other way to put it. But yeah, there you go. There's the whole tier list right there. That's all 38 games that are available for people to play, and then 39 with Legends ZA. So yeah, so all 38 games. I think I'm pretty satisfied with where they are placed. I have no complaints. I don't think I have any adjustments that I want to make. I think that where they all are is where I think that they deserve to be. Because if there was anything that I was going to adjust, I would have done it, but I feel like everything is in a good spot. Everything is where it deserves to be. And there you have it, a complete tier list of all the games Pokemon has released, placed where I think they deserve to be. Now, obviously, I left out Pokemon Legends ZA, and that's because it hasn't been released at the time of recording. But after I play through it, which I plan to stream as much of it as I can once it does release, I'll update this list to include the game. That won't be for quite some time though, so don't expect it anytime soon. For now though, enjoy the rest of your day, and I'll see you guys in the next one.